Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be checking out my adventures with Superman issue 8, the first of a big 3-part finale that begins bringing everything from all of the plots from across the season together, starting with Clark developing his super hearing, and because of it he begins to hear literally everybody in Metropolis, including people in need, and because Superman is who he is, Clark stops at nothing to help save them all, even at the cost of sleep and life. Doing so takes a toll on the hero, as there's just too much for even Superman to do, and he can't even be everywhere at once, and him losing sleep and his social life over it end up causing him to begin to make mistakes. This is where Lois's plot for the episode comes in, as she discovers her childhood hero Vicky Vale from Gotham is in town, and she's planning on doing a big expose column for the Daily Planet on Superman, seeing the hero as more of a menace who can't be controlled and will eventually turn on Metropolis and America. I love this incarnation of Vicky, mostly because the writers are actually doing something interesting with the character outside of making her Bruce Wayne's girlfriend who may or may not die every now and then. Her whole story is the embodiment of the old saying, never meet your heroes, as Lois finds out Vale isn't who she thought she was, and she's a rather vain, self-centered reporter who cares more about the headlines than the actual story behind them. I also like how she kind of looks like a traditional design for Lois Lane, or what Lois Lane would look like in one of those animated films. Like, she wouldn't have been out of place in something like Flashpoint Paradox or one of the Superman animated films. Vicky enlists the help of Lois and Jimmy as they head all over Metropolis to interview people, with one of the big ones being Alex from the Ivo Parasite episode. If you didn't catch my review on that episode, I made it pretty clear that this character is obviously meant to be Lex Luthor, and here it just kind of reinforces that, as we see Alex is full-on anti-alien and anti-Superman, really upset of what Superman did to his boss Anthony Ivo and his company. This is a really great subplot for Lois, as she's still wrestling with the idea that Superman could very well be evil, having gotten that weird orb information thingy from the League of Lois's, which show other Earth's evil Superman, and Vicky's interview almost helps convince Lois that this could be the case here, especially with Superman at that time making mistakes thanks to his super hearing kicking in and him suffering through fatigue. I'm hoping for a little bit of a parallel with the Lois plot here, with Clark's plot about his identity early on in the season, since now Lois has a secret that Clark doesn't know, and she doesn't particularly want to share it with him, but in doing so could help bring them closer, and it would be a really cool way to show that Lois is learning and Lois is developing as a character if she takes this information to Clark, whereas he tried to hide it to save her the trauma from it. I'm really excited to see where the writers are going to take it in these remaining episodes, and when the kryptonite will be coming back as well, because that orb also gave Lois some kryptonite, and I have to imagine it's going to fall into the hands of the bad guys who are still after Superman. Speaking of Superman, along with the superhearing plot, he also figures the Mist is running around Metropolis and tries to track the villain down, which turns out to be one big trap set by the General and Amanda Waller, who has enlisted all of the villains from the previous episodes as their own personal suicide squad, although it's more like a Superman revenge squad from the comics, being that these are all villains who want revenge against Superman specifically. Clark's battle with them ends up causing a lot of damage, and thanks to his recent missteps because of his fatigue and trying to help everyone in Metropolis at once, the people think he's pretty much responsible for it all. This leads to Superman being captured by the squad and ending on the big cliffhanger with him taken to see the General. A story of Superman running himself ragged because he wants to help everyone has been done a couple of times through things like Smallville, the animated series, and of course in the comic books, and I never, ironically, tire of it because it's really a cornerstone of Superman. He's a hero who can do all these amazing things, and he wants to use his amazing powers to help people as much as he can, and often at the detriment of his own being and his own life. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it informs the Metropolis plot with Lois and how the city views Superman now that he's made a mistake, as well as how Clark kind of figures out himself what his limits are and what he can do and what he can do to help the city and help the world as well, and know that there are limits to what he can do. My Adventures with Superman begins its big 3-part conclusion with with episode 8 by balancing out 3 plots the writers pretty flawlessly begin to interconnect with one another towards the end of the episode, bringing home a lot of the hanging plot threads from throughout the season, while diving back into some classic Superman tropes with more of the hero's powers being manifested in interesting ways. I'm going to give this episode a 10 out of 10.